Here is Carmen Sandiego.
Hello and welcome to another day in paradise, and welcome to another edition of the Unapologetic Negropian. In today's video, Maryjane Byarm has toured the entire planet. She has stated that she has visited some 100 countries in the last 4 years. That is rather impressive. But whilst it's impressive, I'm not sure if I believe it. In fact, I tried counting up the number of countries that she's been to. It didn't go anywhere near 100 actually. I think I got to around 60 or 65, which is still very impressive. In fact, there is no way that she could get to over 100 countries unless she had traveled the African continent extensively, and I think she's only been to a handful of African countries. Strangely enough, she's stayed away from sub-Saharan Africa, hasn't she? In general, she has. Anyway, I think she's visited far more countries in Asia than what she has on the continent of Africa. You could say that she pretty much loves Asia. She likes traveling there. And in fact, I think she has spent the majority of her time outside of the United States on the continent of Asia, more notably China. I have also been to China before, and even though I was only there for a short amount of time, I could feel that it was having an influence on me, so to speak. I could feel its presence, and I could feel that it was changing me, somewhat for the better. The Chinese have a mindset, a way of thinking which is highly contagious, quite infectious, which you can somehow implement in your life, and it gives you, I would say a stronger mind. And I was looking at the way Maryjane Byarm was speaking, the way she was communicating with her subscribers. I could sense that when she had spent time in China, she had also adopted and absorbed some of the Chinese culture and thinking. I have had a number of comments of people talking about Maryjane Byarm's stance when it comes to racism. And I could see that a lot of people had spoken to Maryjane Byarm about racism, about the culture of racism, and about the present climate of what is happening in the United States when it comes to black people. And most of those people were met with quite a sharp reaction from Maryjane Byarm. I genuinely believe that the way she thinks and the way she views racism and race relations has been adopted from her time living in China. I genuinely believe this because the Chinese have a certain way of thinking. So what kind of aspects of Chinese culture, of Chinese thinking, of the Chinese mindset did Maryjane Byarm pick up during her year or so living in China? Today we're going to try and ask ourselves the question: has Maryjane Byarm been influenced by Chinese culture, and how it affects the way she thinks about race relations? First, I'm going to ask you to please like, subscribe, share, click the bell notification, and please consider supporting the channel on our Patreon, link in the description. First of all, I'm going to read to you a comment that was left by someone who had watched one of my videos about Maryjane Byarm. I think this comment was more addressing me. So it was left by a viewer called Scotty, and this is how it went. Okay, so let's not act like institutional systemic racism, oppression, isn't a thing. Lots of laughs. A lot of the times, the color of our skin, unfortunately, does play a pivotal role in our success and or failures, primarily based on the white-dominated world that we live in. Recognizing this is not based on having a victim mentality, it's based upon historic facts. There's a difference. Lots of laughs. You can be a realist about the world we live in while also not playing the victim. Two things can exist at once. That's great that you lived a great life and that you think your skin has benefited you. However, many other black people haven't had that experience, especially growing up in America. Maybe your mentality is based upon being from the UK, but American history proves your opinion otherwise. None of what I said has to do with Maryjane. I'm specifically responding to your race rant in the beginning of this video. Maryjane is a scammer and I have no sympathy for her. Lots of laughs. I wanted to reply to this comment because I think it's very telling. I started speaking about race because Maryjane Byarm has a more pragmatic sort of look towards the problem of racism and how to deal with it. Maryjane Byarm actually, to be honest with you, has done the best thing to deal with racism in America. She left the country, okay? If you want to get rid of American racism, try and leave, because trust me, there is a bigger world out there than just America and white culture, if white culture even exists. So I'm going to try and break it down for you, okay? Because I think when people were trying to speak to Maryjane Byarm about racism, she's a socially awkward person. She struggles to communicate with people. So she couldn't communicate to people that you need to look at the problem from a different perspective. The part of this comment where it says that we live in a white-dominated world. I can tell you this right now. There are 1.2 billion Chinese people who would probably laugh at that comment. And this is why I think Maryjane Byarm has adopted some of this culture. Maryjane Byarm hasn't allowed that type of thinking that she's at the bottom of the pile somehow because of the color of her skin. She hasn't allowed that to infect her. She's not saying that institutional racism and that bias towards her skin color doesn't exist. Of course it exists. White supremacy. It might exist. But it doesn't exist in her mind the same way as it exists in your mind. And this is the difference with the way she thinks. And I agree with her thinking. She doesn't look at it in that sort of way. She doesn't live vicariously through how white people think about her. And she wouldn't allow that to happen. And I think that is an incredible way of thinking. Something which I think she has adopted from her time living in China. Chinese people are a great example of the way black people should be thinking. We should be adopting a lot of how Chinese people think, because Chinese people don't think the way you think. They don't think the way Europeans think in America. I like calling them European Americans, by the way, guys. I don't call them Americans. I call them European Americans. Like African Americans, the European Americans. If you're not native Indian, then you're not an American in my eyes. You're an immigrant. Okay? I'm sorry about this, guys. It's an immigrant country, right? Chinese people think completely different. Okay? They don't care about what other people think about them. It makes them almost impervious to racism. It's extremely difficult to be racist to a Chinese person. Let me tell you the reason why it's difficult. If you are a white person and you go up to a Chinese person and you tell a Chinese person, oh, your race is amazing. The Chinese are a great people. They are an industrious people. They are the captains of industry. They are the people who are going to take us forward. These people, you guys are amazing. And let's say another white person goes up to the exact same Chinese person and says, you Chinese people are yada, yada, yada. That white person says all the derogatory racist things to that Chinese person, to that same Chinese person who was being applauded a moment before by another white person. Do you know how that Chinese person would react to those two people? That Chinese person would react the exact same way to both of those people. And let me tell you why. It's because if you are not Chinese, or if you are not ethnically Chinese, then you are a ghost. You don't exist. They don't care about what you think. They don't care about how you feel, your opinions. It's completely irrelevant to them. They don't care. They don't go around thinking, oh, well, they don't wake up thinking, oh, well, I'm a Chinese person and, oh, well, it's going to be a struggle because, I'm a Chinese person. They don't walk outside, even here in Europe, they don't walk outside thinking, oh, I'm a Chinese person. How am I going to get along in this world? They don't care about the people who are not ethnically Chinese. They don't care about what you think or how you feel. This, I feel, is something Maryjane Byarm has adopted and has absorbed into her way of thinking. I think this is where she has gotten a lot of her power. She already has that great African American blood inside her, and now she's merged it with a Chinese mindset, and that has created something so powerful that I even believe that all this that's happening, she's just going to survive it and she'll carry on going. She's still going to rise to the top. I truly believe that. I don't believe anybody out there is going to be able to stop her. And that is because she has managed to adapt these two methods, the strength of her African American blood that's flowing through her veins, and that Chinese mindset that she now has, where she couldn't care less about what other people think about her in terms of her race. She has adopted these two things and it has given her something, an edge. It's what is driving her. The reason why many African American youngsters believe that the world is somehow ran by white people is because you look at the world through the eyes of an American, okay? You live your lives through social media. You watch too much Instagram posts of Sean King posting videos of black people getting shot and getting beaten up by a bunch of degenerate police officers. That is the reason why you believe that. But the rest of the world isn't like that. Chinese people think the opposite to what a lot of African Americans believe, like this. They don't believe that anybody else is greater than them. No one else. This is the reason why it's not like they don't have that passion inside them. You see, if you are from Singapore, or if you are Sino-Malaysian, or if you are from Hong Kong, or if you are from Taiwan, especially if you're from Taiwan, and if you say something nasty about the Chinese people on mainland China, they will blow up. It will get to violence over those types of people saying something bad about Chinese people, being racist against Chinese people or against the Chinese nation. Why? Because those people from those small countries are ethnically Chinese, and they care about what other Chinese people think about those people on the Chinese mainland. Okay? So they would blow up if any of those people from any of those countries said anything. But if you're not ethnically Chinese, you are absolutely irrelevant. You'd be lucky if you even got a reaction from them. They would ghost you like you didn't exist, regardless of what you said. And this is the type of mindset we as black people in general should have. We should have this mindset. It's a very powerful mindset, because if you have this mindset, all of a sudden you have rendered racism, you have snatched that power that racism had over you, you've snatched it and you've taken it. Because all of a sudden, no one can be racist to you. I mean, they can do. They can still be biased towards you. They can do all this type of thing, okay? But if we have this type of mindset, as the same type of mindset that Maryjane Byarm now has, it doesn't matter. All of a sudden, we can start focusing on building our own industries, about building our own institutions. In order for you to be set free, you need to do a Maryjane Byarm, and you need to leave the country, at least for a while anyway, so you can adapt, you can learn how the world works, you can look at the world from a perspective of somebody else. You don't see hordes of European white people going over to America, right? That's because those in Europe live a better life than you guys in America. They live a more socially cohesive life where not everything is governed by money and work. Thousands and thousands of years of culture, design, technology have been built throughout the African continent. Different people with different understandings and different ways of life. We have the most diverse population right there on the African continent than any other continent of people, okay? We have this and we've developed this over thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Oh, but slavery. I'm going to tell you this right now. Slavery on the map of Africa is a blip. It's a tiny blip, okay? And I'm saying this as a person who is a descendant of a slave, okay? I'm a descendant of a slave. So, it is nothing in comparison to the rest of the history that we and the rest of the things that we have achieved on the continent up until then. So once again, getting out of the United States of America is very important. American history proves your opinion otherwise. Who cares about American history? Like I just said, the world is not constantly waking up in the morning thinking about how to appease America. Okay, this is not the way we live outside the United States of America. We live virtuous lives out here. We live good lives. Okay, Maryjane Byarm has had a taste of it. She's not going back to America anytime soon. She doesn't want to go back. She is living her dream. Right now, she's in my city. She's in a city that I'm very close to. You know, she's in London and she's enjoying herself. I love London. Wouldn't be surprised now if Maryjane Byarm stays in London, because London is an incredible city. It really is. And I might be sounding biased. I was never born and raised in London, by the way, guys. I was raised a little further up the road in Birmingham. But London as a city I think it's the best city in the world. It's just incredible. It's much better than New York City. I'm sorry, but it just is. Okay? And that's because whilst New York City is cosmopolitan, London is also extremely cosmopolitan, but the people are sort of together. You know, it doesn't matter who you are. There's more cohesiveness inside London between the different races and peoples and ethnicities than there is in America. In America, it's all fragmented, and you know, the people, the ethnicities in America all sort of stick to one another. The Irish stick to the Irish. You know, the Serbian Americans stick with the Serbians. The African Americans, African Americans, the Jamaican Americans, they stick. That's how sort of I see the United States of America. It's just like, oh, you're all together, but you're not together, if you know what I mean. You sort of tolerate one another. It's not the way we live in London. And Maryjane Byarm, she's going to see this. I would not be surprised if she stays in London for a prolonged period of time, if she can afford it. I lived and traveled in the United States for over 4 years, and I was like, yeah, it's not all that. A little disappointing if I need to be honest with you. So when Maryjane Byarm left the United States of America, she freed herself. She freed herself mentally from this guy. I think actually she's still tied to him slightly, and he's still having an effect on her, unfortunately. I think the trauma of having gotten pregnant with this guy is still affecting her to some degree even now. This is not an excuse for scamming people, okay? If she's scamming people, she needs to give that money back, or she needs to start working on repairing her brand, okay? She's been around for 4 years. I have a feeling she's going to continue to be around for a number of other years to come. She can solidify herself, she can make her mark, she can get to the golden 1 million subscribers and live a virtuous, happy, free life where she is making people happy just to go away from the United States, to live their lives free people, to not be afraid of going to Muslim countries, to just go there, experience these things for themselves. It's going to be an uphill battle though, while she is still blocking people and ignoring people's emails and messages and still not giving people good value for their money when they go on one of her excursions. So she needs to pull her bootstraps up straight away right now. Try and mend that wound right now to stop the bleeding so she can, start to repair, at least start that process. I don't see her family helping out here in this point as well. Her family knows what's going on at this present moment and they think that they can fight this. It's not a fight, okay? 270 odd thousand subscribers is a lot of subscribers, but she can fall. And like I said before, I have seen channels around that size get obliterated by the YouTube algorithm. The algorithm is boss. Right now, the algorithm is in her favor, but it can turn like that. And she does not want that. If she has built her life, her future on YouTube right now, on this platform, she does not want to put a ton of people who now feel like they have been betrayed. She does not want a whole group of enemies who are constantly now seeking to bring her down. And that is what she is doing. She's cultivating this culture within her subscriber base. It's not looking good if she doesn't change. So guys, what do you think? Do you think Maryjane Byarm has the right way of thinking when it comes to communicating with other cultures, speaking about her race, speaking about race relations? Do you think she knows it? I mean, she must know some degree of it, right? She lived in New Jersey of all places. Not exactly one of the most African-American friendly parts of the country, okay? So she has had that experience. So do you think that most African-American girls should adopt her way of thinking? Do you think they should, capture that power, take it from them and grow? Guys, let me know what you think inside the comment section below. It'd be really good to hear what you have to say about this. Guys, that's all I have time for today. I'd like to thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. I'd like to give an extra special thank you to my Patreons. And I will see you in the next one. Until the next time, please think twice. To our